The bar owner, Vic Rizzo, walked closer to his table, his voice sharp and biting. "Your kind isn't welcome here. Always too rowdy, always looking for trouble. I don't want military types causing a scene in my bar. You think you own the place, but you don't. Finish your drink and get out before I throw you out myself." And that was just the beginning of Mark M. McMillan's battle, not on the battlefield, but for respect in a place he hoped to find peace. Stay with us as we follow his journey and the unbreakable bonds that would soon come to his defense. Before we dive into the story, if you find tales of loyalty, honor, and unexpected brotherhood gripping, make sure to subscribe for more stories like this. Now let's get started. Mark McMillan pushed open the front door of his modest apartment and took a slow, steadying breath. After 12 years in the Navy SEALs, the world outside felt foreign. Still moving, still loud, but strangely distant from the silent discipline that had shaped his every day. The weight of his gear was gone, but the weight of his memories pressed heavily on his chest. Home wasn't just a place, it was a chance to find peace, or at least to try. He carefully unpacked his bag, each motion deliberate and controlled, a remnant of the countless drills that had kept him sharp and alive. The photos on the wall caught his eye. Snapshots of his SEAL brothers, faces weathered by battles both seen and unseen. Those bonds, forged in the shadows of conflict, still tethered him tightly to a past that refused to fade. Tonight, though, Mark wanted to leave that behind, just for a little while. Later, he decided to visit the local bar down the street. It was a quiet place, dimly lit and usually empty at this hour, a sanctuary for anyone wanting to disappear into the background. He hoped the hum of low conversations and the soft clink of glasses might ease the ache inside. The first step into civilian life wasn't about grand gestures. It was about finding small moments of normalcy, however fleeting they might be. Mark McMillan was ready to walk that path, one slow step at a time. The Salty Gull was nestled on the edge of the waterfront, its weathered sign swinging gently in the salty breeze. Mark pushed open the door and stepped inside, the faint scent of old wood and spilled beer filling his nostrils. A handful of locals nursed their drinks under the dim amber light, their conversations low and murmuring. The bar was quiet tonight, just what Mark needed. He slid onto a stool at the far corner, the worn leather cool beneath his palms. The bartender gave him a nod, a silent welcome. Mark ordered a beer and let the amber liquid settle before him. His eyes, sharp and watchful, scanned the room, a habit ingrained after years in hostile zones. The faces were unremarkable, but something lingered beneath the surface, a tension that tightened the air. Minutes passed and Mark remained silent, sipping slowly, lost in thought. This wasn't the battlefield, but the subtle lines of conflict were still present. A man's past followed him like a shadow, invisible yet palpable. Mark was searching for peace, but peace wasn't always found in the absence of noise. It was often in the quiet acceptance of who you were and the battles you fought long after the fighting ended. The door creaked open again, and Vic Rizzo appeared, his heavy frame cutting a sharp silhouette against the bar's dim interior. Vic's eyes locked onto Mark immediately, narrowing with suspicion. The owner of the Salty Gull was a man who believed in running a tight ship, on his terms, and military types, in his experience, meant trouble. Vic stalked over, his footsteps heavy and deliberate. "You've been sitting there staring for 20 minutes, he barked, voice rough and loud enough to draw glances. "You casing the joint or just planning trouble?" Mark looked up, calm and steady. "Just having a beer," he said softly, thinking. Vic scoffed, crossing his arms. "Don't like your kind in here. You military types bring nothing but trouble. Best finish up and get out before I make you leave." Mark's jaw tightened. "My kind?" he asked quietly, a warning flickering in his grey eyes. "And what kind would that be?" Vic leaned in, his breath heavy with smoke and bitterness. "The rowdy, arrogant, fight-looking kind. You're not welcome here." Mark didn't flinch. His Navy SEAL training had taught him control, patience, and choosing battles wisely. He met Vic's glare with calm defiance. "I'm not looking for trouble," he said evenly. "Just a quiet place to unwind." Vic snorted, dismissing the words. "I don't care what you're looking for. You're not welcome here. Without a word, Mark slid off the stool and started toward the exit. The eyes in the bar followed him, some curious, some wary. As he stepped outside, the salty night air hit his face, a brief comfort against the sour tension inside. He pulled out his phone and quickly sent a message to his former SEAL team. Had a run-in with a bar owner. Not good. Keep an eye out. That night, Mark sat alone in his small apartment, the weight of the day pressing on his chest. His mind replayed the bar scene, the cold hostility, the blatant prejudice. It wasn't just about him. It was about the respect owed to every man and woman who served. His fingers hovered over his phone, considering the next move. Almost immediately, his phone buzzed. A message from Jake Reaper Rock, the senior chief and the unofficial leader of their SEAL team. Got your message. We're on it. Mark. Felt a surge of relief. The bond between them was more than just friendship. It was brotherhood forged in fire, tested in the toughest conditions. Whatever was coming, he wouldn't face it alone. The next morning, the Salty Gull stirred with its usual crowd, unaware of the storm brewing. Around midday, the bar's bell chimed again, but this time the door didn't open to a solitary man. A group of 6 men, sturdy and confident, filed in. Their presence shifted the atmosphere instantly. Jake Rock led the way, his authoritative gaze sweeping the room. The regulars recognized them. Veterans, warriors, men who had been through hell and back. The bar quieted to a murmur as the group approached Vic, who was wiping down glasses behind the counter. Jake's voice was calm but commanding. "We're here about Mark McMillan." Vic straightened, suddenly on edge. "What's this about?" Jake's eyes never left Vic's. "You've disrespected one of our own. We expect an apology, a promise to respect veterans, and a donation to the Navy SEAL Foundation." Vic's face flushed red, his bravado faltering under the weight of Jake's gaze and the solid presence of the entire SEAL team. "Look, I didn't mean no disrespect," he stammered, "but I've had my share of trouble with veterans. Some come in here drunk, cause fights. I was just trying to protect my bar." Jake shook his head slowly, unimpressed. "One bad apple doesn't spoil the whole bunch. You don't get to paint us all with the same brush." He glanced at his team, who nodded in agreement. "You'll make it right. Apologize to Mark, pledge respect to vets, and support the foundation. That's the only way forward." Vic's eyes darted around the room, seeing the silent judgment from his customers and the steely resolve in the veterans before him. Swallowing his pride, he finally nodded. "All right, I'll do it." Later that afternoon, Vic stood behind the bar, the hum of the crowd filling the Salty Gull. Jake stepped forward, speaking loudly enough for everyone to hear. "Mark McMillan is a man of honor, a man who served this country. We're here to demand respect for those who wear the uniform." Vic cleared his throat, the words coming slower than usual. "I want to apologize to Mark McMillan and to all veterans. I was wrong to judge without cause, and I promise this bar will be a place that honors and respects those who serve." The crowd responded with a mix of murmurs and nods. Mark, seated quietly in a corner, felt a quiet satisfaction. His brothers had his back, and now the bar would be a better place for veterans. With the tension dissolved, the atmosphere lightened. Mark returned to the bar, greeted with nods of respect from patrons who had witnessed the scene. Jake clapped a hand on Mark's shoulder. "You did good, brother." Vic approached, extending his hand. "Welcome back, Mark. Drinks on the house." Mark smiled faintly and shook his hand. The battle was over, but the bonds formed had only grown stronger. Together they had turned hostility into respect. The Salty Gull was now a sanctuary for those who had sacrificed, and Mark could finally enjoy his peace. That evening, the SEAL team gathered around a worn wooden table, sharing stories and laughter. Their unity was unbreakable, forged in hardship and trust. Mark looked around at his brothers, gratitude filling him. No matter where life took them, they would always stand together, defending, supporting, and honoring one another. The night closed with a silent promise. As long as they had each other, no prejudice or hardship could break their bond. The story of Mark M. McMillan was more than one man's victory. It was a testament to brotherhood, respect, and resilience. The sun filtered softly through the blinds as Mark sat alone in his small apartment, nursing a cup of black coffee. The events at the Salty Gull still replayed in his mind, the tension, the confrontation, and finally the apology. For a moment he allowed himself to feel peace, something he hadn't known since his discharge. His phone buzzed gently. A message from Jake. "Good job yesterday, we've got your back always." Mark smiled. Brotherhood wasn't just a word, it was a lifeline. Mark glanced down at his hands, scarred from years of training and battle. Each mark told a story of sacrifice, pain, and survival. Leaving the military hadn't been easy. There was a void he struggled to fill, a purpose that suddenly seemed distant. Yet the support from his SEAL brothers reminded him he wasn't alone. The fight to protect didn't end with discharge. It evolved into standing for respect and dignity in civilian life. The scars on his hands were badges of honor, proof that he'd endured and would continue to do so. Vic Rizzo had truly turned the bar around. New policies were in place to ensure respect and inclusivity. The bar now featured a dedicated veterans corner, complete with photos, plaques, and a guest book filled with heartfelt messages. It was more than a bar. It was a sanctuary. Mark realized that the bonds forged in combat were not confined to the battlefield. Here at the Salty Gull, in quiet, conversations and shared memories, those bonds grew stronger. Veterans from all walks of life began to gather, sharing stories of hardship and triumph, healing together in a place once hostile to them. The bar became more than a hangout. It became a sanctuary where brotherhood thrived beyond service, proving that respect and understanding could break down even the deepest walls. Though the public apology had been a victory, Mark understood that real change was quieter and slower. It was in the small moments, a nod from a stranger, a word of encouragement, the genuine smiles that replaced suspicion. Each day he returned to the bar. He felt the weight of invisible battles lift bit by bit. This quiet victory was more meaningful than any parade. It was about reclaiming dignity on his own terms. Jake Reaper Rock wasn't just a leader on the battlefield. He had a vision for their team's future. He organized outreach programs to help veterans reintegrate into civilian life, using their stories to inspire understanding and empathy. Mark volunteered, eager to help others avoid the pain of prejudice and isolation. Together they worked to build bridges between the military and their communities, showing that respect was the foundation of any strong society. Despite the progress, Mark still faced moments of doubt. Memories of deployments and lost comrades haunted his quiet nights. Healing was not linear, and some wounds ran deep, but with every meeting, every story shared at the bar, Mark felt more equipped to face his past. The strength of his brothers, old and new, reminded him he was never truly alone in his struggles. The Salty Gull had transformed, becoming a beacon of hope and respect. Vic proudly shared stories of veterans who stopped by, of the foundation, events he hosted, and the community that grew around them. What had begun as a place of hostility evolved into a legacy of redemption and honor, a testament to the power of second chances and the strength found in unity. With the bar's new reputation, veterans from neighboring towns started visiting, bringing fresh stories and perspectives. Mark enjoyed meeting these new faces, each one a chapter in the larger story of service and sacrifice. Their experiences, though different, all reflected the same resilience and quiet courage. The Salty Gull became a place where strangers became brothers, united not by rank or medal, but by shared understanding and respect. Vic Rizzo's transformation wasn't just about business. It was personal. He began volunteering at local veteran centers and learned about the struggles many faced. His hardened exterior softened as he realized the depth of commitment and pain behind the uniforms. His apology wasn't just words anymore, it was backed by action, proving that even the most stubborn hearts could change when confronted with truth and humility. Late one evening, Mark sat at the bar nursing a soda. The noise had died down and the warm glow of the lights felt comforting. He thought about how far he had come, from feeling unwanted and misunderstood to being embraced by a community that valued him. He realized that peace wasn't about escaping the past, but accepting it, using it to build something better for himself and others. Mark and Jake began mentoring younger veterans and even active duty servicemen, sharing lessons learned from both combat and civilian life. They emphasized the importance of brotherhood, resilience, and respect. These sessions grew popular, bringing new energy to the bar and strengthening the bonds between generations of warriors who shared a commitment to service. The bar's monthly fundraisers for the Navy SEAL Foundation drew larger crowds, including families and local business owners. What started as a small private stand against prejudice blossomed into a community movement, honoring veterans in all their complexity. Mark watched proudly as Vic hosted the events with genuine enthusiasm, a symbol of how far both men had come. 1. Friday night, the Salty Gull was packed more than ever. A local band played patriotic songs, veterans shared stories, and families cheered. Mark watched the crowd, some young, some old, all united in respect. Jake raised his glass, proposing a toast to brotherhood and the enduring spirit of those who serve. The room erupted in cheers, and Mark felt a deep sense of belonging. One afternoon, a group of active duty Navy SEAL trainees came into the bar, curious about the stories they had heard. Mark and Jake welcomed them warmly, sharing candid advice and answering questions honestly. The trainees listened intently, inspired by the lived experience and the legacy of their predecessors. For Mark, it was a reminder that the fight and the fellowship never truly end. Despite the progress, Mark sometimes found himself haunted by memories of his deployments, the weight of loss, and the burden of survival. He confided in Jake, who reminded him that strength includes acknowledging pain. Together, they worked through those shadows, reinforcing the importance of mental health alongside physical resilience. The bar began hosting joint events with local law enforcement and first responders, fostering mutual understanding and cooperation. Mark saw how these relationships could heal old wounds and create new alliances. Vic, once antagonistic, now championed these partnerships, his bar a beacon for unity. Mark received a call from an old mentor inviting him to speak at a veterans conference. He accepted, eager to share his journey, not just as a Navy SEAL, but as a man transformed by brotherhood, respect, and forgiveness. His story would inspire others, proving that true strength lies in compassion and community. Mark settled into his new routine, embracing the peace he once thought unattainable. Early mornings by the coast, long walks through the town, and evenings at the Salty Gull where laughter and camaraderie replaced hostility. Though the scars of his past remained, so did the quiet strength that had carried him through every challenge. One afternoon, an unexpected visitor arrived, a fellow SEAL from Mark's unit, now a counselor specializing in PTSD. Their reunion was warm and emotional, a reminder that the bonds forged in service lasted far beyond deployment. Together, they discussed plans to expand support services for veterans in Port City. Word spread of Mark's work with the community and the Navy SEAL Foundation. He was approached by a local school principal, inviting him to speak to students about resilience, service, and respect. Mark accepted, eager to impact young lives and inspire the next generation. Despite progress, not everyone in Port City embraced change. Mark overheard whispered doubts and subtle slights aimed at veterans. The fight for respect wasn't over. He resolved to continue advocating, knowing that change often came slowly, but was worth every effort. Vic Rizzo had truly turned the bar around. New policies were in place to ensure respect and inclusivity. The bar now featured a dedicated Veterans Corner, complete with photos, plaques, and a guest book filled with heartfelt messages. It was more than a bar. It was a sanctuary. Mark began organizing monthly meetups at the Salty Gull, inviting veterans and townspeople alike to share stories and build understanding. The gatherings grew, transforming the bar into a community hub where past wounds could heal through connection and empathy. He watched as walls of mistrust slowly crumbled. Vic, once Mark's adversary, became a staunch supporter. He volunteered to help coordinate events, sharing his own story of prejudice and growth. Their unlikely friendship symbolized the town's changing heart. Vic's transformation inspired many to reconsider their own biases. At a community dinner, Mark was honored, for his work bridging the civilian-military divide. The recognition was bittersweet, a reminder of battles fought in silence and the value of perseverance. He dedicated the award to his fallen brothers and sisters. Late one night, a call jolted Mark back to harsh memories, a fellow SEAL in trouble, struggling to adjust to civilian life. Mark knew the importance of stepping up. His fight extended beyond himself. He prepared to offer support just as his team had for him. Mark reunited with his SEAL team for a weekend retreat focused on healing and renewal. They shared stories, laughed, and remembered those lost. The bond remained unbreakable, a constant in a changing world. Their presence was a reminder. No one stood alone. Back in Port City, Mark found himself mentoring a young veteran struggling with PTSD. Patient and steady, he guided him through the shadows of trauma, proving that brotherhood means lifting each other up beyond the battlefield. Every step forward was hard-won, but vital. The Salty Gull underwent renovations to become more welcoming, veteran memorabilia adorned the walls, and a hero's welcome sign hung proudly. Vic embraced the change, welcoming a new generation of patrons who respected service and sacrifice. It was a symbol of transformation in more ways than one. During a town hall, Mark spoke openly about forgiveness, not just for others but for himself. His honesty touched many hearts, opening the door for healing in a community once divided by fear and misunderstanding. He knew forgiveness was the first step to freedom. Mark received news of an old enemy from his SEAL days resurfacing. The threat was subtle but dangerous, testing the calm he had built in civilian life. He prepared to confront the past with the same discipline that had kept him alive before. Peace required vigilance. Port City began to change as veteran awareness grew. Schools invited Mark to speak, local businesses adopted veteran-friendly policies, and respect for service deepened in everyday life. The seeds planted in the Salty Gull were flourishing. Mark felt hope blooming in the place he now called home. One afternoon, a stranger appeared at Mark's rented room, a former SEAL with urgent news about a covert mission gone wrong overseas. Mark's calm demeanor shifted as the call to duty resurfaced, reminding him that even retired warriors sometimes face the impossible. Old ties don't break easily. Mark and the visitor spent hours reviewing details, mapping out a plan to assist. Their comrades from afar. Though physically apart, the Brotherhood's reach was long and strong, blending strategy with unyielding loyalty. Distance couldn't diminish their bond. Sleep eluded Mark as memories of past deployments mingled with the uncertainty ahead. He reflected on how far he'd come, from a soldier in war zones to a man rebuilding his life, ready to face whatever challenges lay next. Courage sometimes meant standing still and waiting. Mark sent secure messages to his SEAL brothers, reigniting the network that had once operated in the shadows. They responded swiftly, their commitment unwavering, prepared to act when called. Some bonds never fade. Despite the looming mission, Mark remained rooted in Port City's newfound peace. He found strength in balance between past and present, action and patience, knowing both were essential to the man he was becoming. True strength is often quiet. Late one evening, Mark's phone buzzed with an encrypted message. The mission had escalated unexpectedly. His team needed his insight to navigate a high-risk extraction overseas. Though he was far from the battlefield, the call was clear. Brotherhood demanded action. The past was never truly behind him. Mark immersed himself in preparation, studying new intel, coordinating logistics, and mentally bracing for the chaos that might come. His years of training surged back, a familiar rhythm that steadied him amid uncertainty. Experience is the calm before the storm. Within hours, the SEALs regrouped, each man ready to face danger for the sake of one another. The quiet streets of Port City gave way to the tension of imminent deployment, yet Mark felt comforted by their unwavering solidarity. Together, they were unstoppable. As the mission unfolded in distant lands, Mark's thoughts remained tethered to home and to the justice he had fought for in the Salty Gull. The battles were different, but the values, honor, loyalty, respect, remained constant. The fight for dignity is never over, When the dust settled, Mark's team returned with heavy stories but unbroken spirits. The scars of war ran deep, but so did their bond. Mark knew that peace wasn't just an absence of conflict, it was a fragile state earned through resilience. Brotherhood endured beyond the battlefield. Back at the Salty Gull, life had subtly shifted. The bar's atmosphere had softened, respect threading through conversations where suspicion once lingered. Mark noticed patrons nodding in recognition, offering silent thanks for his quiet courage. Small victories often go unseen, but they change everything. Mark found himself mentoring younger veterans who wandered into the bar seeking a safe place. His presence became a beacon of hope, a living testament that respect and dignity could be reclaimed, even in unexpected places. Healing begins with shared understanding. Vic Rizzo, once a source of conflict, now sought Mark's counsel on how to better support veterans. The old bitterness melted, replaced by genuine efforts to create community, a testament to how bridges, once burned, could be rebuilt. Sometimes enemies become allies. Mark's story spread beyond the bar, inspiring others to stand firm in the face of prejudice. His calm strength became a symbol that courage isn't always loud. It can be steady, patient, and resolute. Legacy is born from quiet acts of bravery. Sitting with his SEAL brothers one last time at the Salty Gull, Mark smiled, knowing the bond that had carried them through war and peace was unbreakable. Their shared respect, loyalty, and love formed the true foundation of their strength. In brotherhood, we find our greatest victories. And so Mark McMillan found more than just respect that day. He found the unbreakable bond of brotherhood that no challenge or prejudice could break. In a world that often misunderstands those who serve, his story reminds us all of the power of loyalty, courage, and standing up for what's right, even when it means doing so quietly. If you enjoyed this story and believe in the strength of true brotherhood, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more inspiring tales. Your support means the world, and there are many more stories waiting to be told. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next chapter.